Comedian Dave Chappelle was actually attacked during a performance last night at the Hollywood Bowl. This is according to the Los Angeles Police Department. So far, we know that a 23-year-old man was arrested, and Dave is, of course, fine.
NBC News Los Angeles reports that the man was armed with a replica gun that, quote, can eject a knife blade when discharged correctly. It wasn't immediately clear if he tried to use the weapon. Police said that Chappelle was not injured in the incident.
Yeah, and he continued performing after the incident, so he was okay.
The obvious implication is that this is the door that was opened by
Will Smith.
the slap heard around the world. You know, it is also the case that when we were having the conversation about the slap, many comedians pointed out that they had been attacked previously. It wasn't the first time that a comedian's ever been hit for a joke for telling a joke, and it will be interesting to see what the person's motives actually were in attacking Dave Chappelle and what Dave Chappelle has to say as more news comes out.
Yeah, if it's just some crazy person, if it's some person that does feel emboldened by the slap, which that could be, I guess. Or so obviously, you know, Dave Chappelle is now someone who is kind of intensely disliked by like the wokest of the woke, the transgender activist community for jokes he's made on that, things he said on that front. So, you know, theoretically, it could be if someone's motivated by that. We have no idea. This is wild speculation.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if people who have substantive critiques of Dave Chappelle's jokes, that many of which are pretty pointed, I would describe as just being woke. I think there's some diversity among the people who are frustrated with some of Dave Chappelle's humor. There were jokes, for instance, in his latest comedy special about him getting into a fist fight with a lesbian because he was flirting with her girlfriend and all of this kind of thing. I mean, there are a lot of reasons people could be upset. That doesn't justify, obviously, anybody bringing a knife on stage and attacking a comedian. But people might also argue, you know, some people might argue that it's Will Smith that opened this door. Some people might argue that the kind of vilification of Dave Chappelle, whether or not you think it was justified, made people feel like he was the kind of person who you are entitled to hit, which is, I think, a very different kind of framing that was going on with Will Smith and Chris Rock.
Absolutely different framing, but a framing that is real when, you know, certain aspects of the left, of progressives, the whole "it is okay to punch Nazis" sort of ideology, then, like, if you think that, then you ought to be pretty cautious about who if suddenly you're saying it is legitimate to use violence against people who say things I don't like if they're Nazis, then you would want to define Nazi very specifically. But of course, these people are the people inevitably who end up saying anyone to their right, which is literally everyone, is a Nazi, and thus it's okay to just punch anyone you disagree with, which is, you know, a phenomenon we see among some of these kinds of left-wing activists. People, and sentiments that I see expressed by, again, not most progressives or most liberals or most people, but a handful of, I would describe as activist-type people, particularly surrounding transgender issues.
Yeah, I guess
I have no idea if that's what this was.
We don't know what this is. And again, I think part of Dave Chappelle's frustration was that the point he was trying to make in this special was that there are a lot of people who are maligned in the public sphere and that are not defended in the same way that the trans community is defended by a certain liberal subset of the public sphere. And the point that he was making in a special, whether or not you think he made it in the right or appropriate way, or that he had to make it in a way that was at the expense of trans people, was that he told jokes about punching women, he told jokes about black people, he told jokes about crackheads, he tells sexist jokes, he tells racist jokes. He told a joke about, I think, COVID and Asian Americans early on in the special, and none of those get the same kind of pushback. And the fact that we're all even presuming that this was someone who was angered by his comments about trans people and not angered by any of the many, many other offensive things he said about other groups in this special kind of proves this point in a perverse sort of a way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we have a actually photo now of the alleged attacker. We can put that up on screen. So that's allegedly the person who was taken into custody, I believe. And more interesting detail, Chris Rock was there at the show and apparently got up on stage to assist. And I think...
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That feels like a punchline of a joke. I'm sorry. Chris Rock was at the Dave.
This is according to
Chappelle.
TMZ. Chris Rock was there. According to TMZ, Chris Rock was there, and then he hugged Chappelle afterwards. Was that Will Smith? Which is funny.
Oh, life is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, fun stuff. All right, we'll have more Rising after this.